So good morning and welcome. We're with Danielle Sutcliffe from DS Wills this morning to answer some questions that have been raised to us regarding wills and power of attorney. So Danielle, thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Give us a quick bio on where you are, what you do, and so on.
Yeah, so I'm Danielle Sutcliffe from DS Wills and Estate Planning. I specialise in wills, trusts, lasting powers of attorney and probate. I am based in Ingleby Barwick, but I do cover the whole of the North East. So yeah, I think that's about me.
Great stuff. Okay, so the first question we've had, at this moment in time, with lockdown and everything else, have you had an increase in demand for people wanting wills?
Yeah, so there's been an increase across the board actually for wills, trusts and powers of attorney. I think that obviously these uncertain times that we're in, it makes people think a little bit more about getting your affairs in order. So I've definitely seen an increase. The industry as a whole, I believe, have seen a 76% increase. So it's definitely something that's at the forefront of people's minds at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit morbid, but I guess with so much bad news in the press and everything else regarding it all, you can't help but think now's the time to get my affairs in order.
That's right. I mean, obviously it's affecting so many people, either personally or somebody that they know and may have had the virus, and it just puts things into perspective a little, I think.
Yeah. So you mentioned power of attorney then. Just tell us what is power of attorney, or what are the different types of power of attorney?
Yeah, so your lasting power of attorney is separate to your will. It's a completely separate document, and it's something that's used during your lifetime. So a power of attorney as a whole is a document that allows you to appoint somebody known as your attorney who can make decisions for you in the event that you lose mental capacity and unable to make your own decisions. So there are two different types. One is property and financial affairs, and they both do as they say on the tin, really, to be honest, John, but it covers the likes of buying and selling property, accessing money that's in the bank, drawdowns on pensions, accessing state benefits and paying bills, those types of things. On the other side, you've got the health and welfare power of attorney, which covers making medical decisions. It can also cover where you might live. So if you're in a situation where you might need to go into care, for example, your attorney would be able to decide which care home you would live in, your social activities, your dietary requirements. So across the board, the two documents would cover all different types of decisions that might need to be made for somebody.
Okay. So and for my mother, I've got something called enduring power of attorney. So
yeah,
I guess
so
that's just an ongoing until, is it?
So an enduring power of attorney is what they used to be. So they were used many years ago. They were replaced. So if you are to put a power of attorney in place now, it is the lasting power of attorney that would be used. But enduring power of attorneys can absolutely still be used. They are just not the ones that are made anymore. They've been replaced.
Right. Okay. Perfect. Okay. And how are you actually sort of conducting business then during the lockdown?
So yeah, I think it's the same with everybody. Things have obviously changed an awful lot. So usually I do all of my appointments face to face. At the moment, I'm conducting appointments by telephone or by video call. And video call is preferable so that we can obviously see each other and we can have a proper discussion. Then the only thing really that hasn't changed in terms of face to face is actually signing the documents, because the will itself needs to be signed in person. So all I'm doing there is still conducting the face-to-face appointments, albeit under the guidelines of social distancing. So, for example, I've been carrying out will signings in people's gardens, weather permitting, and that type of thing, just to make sure that we're all still safe, but that the legal requirements of executing a will are still adhered to.
Okay. And is there a sort of basic, as it were, template for arranging your will? So it's sort of a relatively simple process, or I mean, it depends on your assets and so on, I guess. But is there a sort of an easy template version, if you like, that someone could get done relatively quickly, cost effectively?
Yeah, I mean, in essence, so the starting point is always what's known as a simple or a basic will. And you can make as you mentioned, you can make your will, to be honest, as simple or as complicated as you might want it to be. But that's why I'm there, to obviously guide people through that process. In terms of a template, so I take all of the instructions from my clients, so they don't have to write anything out. They just have to let me know what their wishes are. So there is not a template as such that somebody would have to follow. Instead, I would take them through the process and obviously produce the will that is in accordance with what their wishes were.
And so I'm thinking of doing my will. What are the sort of the top things that I would need to be thinking about? Obviously, there's financial, kids.
Yes, that's right. So before you would even sit down and maybe think about putting your will in place, the first things to consider are the roles within your will. So who would you like to be your executor? That's the person who's going to administer your estate after you pass. You've then got roles of trustees. If you've got children under 18, you'll need to consider guardians and other things that come along with that. You've then got, as you mentioned, your actual finances. So you're looking at what is your estate made up of? Where do you want it to go? What are your wishes? But one of the biggest things I think that I touch upon for most people is you might know where you want your estate to go, but I also need to know where you do not want your estate to go. Who do you want to make sure it definitely doesn't inherit? Because that's something that can be addressed. Also, if you've got any particular concerns, so common ones that I hear are, what would happen in the event of me passing away and my spouse remarrying? What happens with my estate then? Or what would happen if I was to go into care? All of these are things that can be addressed within your will to make sure that your estate and your beneficiaries are protected.
Okay. And I guess as you sort of go through life, things change financially, personally, and so on. When are the sort of ideal times to, do you need to well, you will need to redo your will, but when are the sort of good times, if you like, to consider redoing your will?
So your will, like you, exactly as you say, is a flexible document. What does change with you as your life changes. So it's advisable that following a marriage, a divorce, a death of somebody that's named within your will, new children or grandchildren, those are the types of key things that you might encourage you to update your will. For me, I just say that a will should be reviewed as standard every 3 to 5 years anyway, just to make sure that it's doing what it needs to do. Because what you also need to consider is potentially changes within the law or tax regulations that might impact upon the provisions that you've made. So for my clients, I contact them every 3 years to do a free will review, just to make sure that everything is still in working order, and to give people peace of mind that if the worst is to happen, that the will would still work for them as they wanted.
Okay. And do you deal with trusts then? Yeah, setting up trusts for the sort of that side of things? Or?
Yeah, so there's a whole host of different types of trusts, John. You can have them that cover, as I've mentioned, particular concerns regarding ring fence in particular parts of your estate, mainly property, to make sure that it goes to your intended beneficiaries. You can also protect against, I suppose, circumstances that might crop up in the lives of your beneficiaries. So, for example, you can protect against your beneficiaries going through a divorce, from them maybe being declared bankrupt, or any other issues that they might have going on in their own life that might affect the way that they are able to inherit. Because ultimately, you would never want to leave your estate to a beneficiary that might be going through a divorce and therefore might potentially lose that inheritance during a divorce proceeding. So all of those things, yeah, absolutely, you can protect against, and that's where trusts come in.
Okay, right. And obviously, we'll deal with moving houses, but is moving house a good time to?
Yeah, moving house is definitely a good time to update it, because again, it could be that if you might have bought a new house and your estate might have gone up, your estate might have gone down, but certainly you'd need to be looking at updating the address to make sure that it's all up to date and everything's working. In terms of the trust that I've mentioned, the trusts can carry with you to a new property, so all of that can still be protected. You just need a standard type of an update to a will.
Okay. Yeah, I know when we're sort of selling homes, obviously properties and estates left without a will, I mean, it's a disaster area, isn't it? So you do very much want to make sure that even if you're, well in advance, clearly, of hoping to need a will, you still really need to have your affairs in order, don't you, to make life simpler for those that are going to pick up the pieces of it, as it were.
That's exactly right. I mean, buying a property, I appreciate that it's updating a will is not often at the forefront of your mind when you're in the exciting process of buying a new property, but it's certainly something that should be considered, because you just want to make sure that you know where that's going. I mean, one of the big concerns around wills is to make sure that you do have one in place, particularly if you're not married and you're buying a property with a partner, just to make sure that you do know where that estate would go if the worst was to happen.
Great, excellent. All good advice. And if anyone does need more particular advice or wants to get in touch with you, where is the best place to contact you?
So all of my details are on my website, which is www.dswills.uk. I do have a Facebook page, so I can be contacted by Facebook Messenger, but otherwise, email, telephone, messenger, I'm there however you want to get hold of me.
Great, okay, and we'll share all your details in the Facebook post. But Danielle, thanks ever so much for your time and answering all the questions, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon.
Andrew, thank you very much for having me.
Pleasure. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.